For many years, Earth had tried to prove itself worthy of joining the great powers of the galaxy. The Galaxy Council, made up of the most advanced alien civilizations, was seen as a symbol of peace, order, and progress. Earth had contributed in every way it could, sharing knowledge, sending aid during planetary disasters, offering skilled humans to help with diplomacy and trade, and building peaceful relations across dozens of worlds. Humanity believed that kindness and cooperation would finally open the door to true galactic unity. When the official invitation arrived, it felt like a dream coming true. Earth would now be a part of something bigger, something greater. Elena Ward, Earth's chosen ambassador, stepped into the galactic hall with hope in her heart and pride in her eyes. She looked at the glowing arches of the council chamber, the grand designs floating mid-air, and the hundreds of alien species seated in a massive circle, watching her every move. It was the most advanced place in the galaxy, yet it felt cold. Still, Elena stood tall and walked forward with Earth's flag projected behind her, ready to sign the Treaty of Shared Advancement. But as she reached the central platform, she noticed something: small details that others might miss. The friendly smiles of the council members seemed forced, their voices a little too calm, their eyes avoiding hers when she tried to meet them. Something felt wrong, like the silence before a storm. When the council asked Earth's defense fleet to disarm as a sign of trust, Elena hesitated. She'd expected cooperation, not surrender. But the council insisted. They said it was tradition that all new members must show their commitment to peace by disabling their planetary defense systems. Elena knew Earth wouldn't like that, but she tried to stay calm. She sent a secure message back home, asking for patience, and continued the process. Within days, strange events began to unfold. Earth's space stations started experiencing technical problems, shields going offline, communication links dropping without reason, and drones shutting down mid-flight. At first, Earth thought it was a system error, but then they found hidden code buried in the software, code that was not made by humans. Someone had gained control over Earth's orbital systems. Then came the reports from human colonies. Supplies were being delayed. Trade ships were denied access to key space lanes. Old allies suddenly turned their backs. Some even claimed Earth was under investigation for aggressive technology development, a claim that had never come up before. It was all happening too fast, too perfectly. Earth was being isolated, step by step, and no one in the council spoke a word against it. When Ambassador Elena confronted the council directly, asking for clarity, they responded with sweet-sounding words that meant nothing. They said Earth must adapt, that it needed to prove it could be trusted, and that temporary restrictions were for the good of the galaxy. But their eyes told a different story, one of lies and betrayal. It all became clear when a secret transmission was leaked to Earth's intelligence network. It showed members of the council in a private meeting, discussing the division of Earth's territories, resources, and technology. They had never planned to accept Earth as an equal. Instead, they had tricked humanity into lowering its guard. They wanted Earth's advanced AI systems, its growing space industry, and most of all, its rising influence among younger civilizations. To the council, Earth was a threat, but not because of war. It was because Earth inspired others to rise. It gave hope to planets that had lived under the Council's control for too long. And that was something they could not allow. Earth was not invited to be a partner. It was lured in to be broken apart. Elena Ward watched the footage in silence, her hands clenched and her breath heavy. She knew what had to be done. Sitting alone in her chamber, she recorded one final message, a message that could not be traced, could not be stopped, and would reach the hidden corners of Earth's defense network. This is Ambassador Ward. The Council has betrayed us. This was never about peace. It was a trap. They are coming for our systems, our colonies, and our future. Prepare for the betrayal. Defend Earth. Trust no one. She sent it through the deepest encryption lines Earth had ever built, then deleted all traces. Moments later, Council security forces arrived to escort her. She smiled politely, stood tall, and went with them. But her eyes held no fear. She had done her part. Now it was time for Earth to awaken. On the far side of the solar system, Earth's Defense Command received the message in silence. General Marcus Reeve stood in the command center, watching the red alert signals blink one by one. There was no panic, no shouting, just silent determination. Earth had always hoped for peace, but it had never forgotten war. Quietly across the stars, old codes were entered. Hidden fleets were recalled. Secret stations powered back up. And in the shadows, something ancient began to move. Something Earth had kept hidden, not for attack, but for the day they might need to protect everything they had built. That day had come. The betrayal was complete, and the Galaxy Council had no idea what was about to happen next. A cold, unnatural quiet settled over Earth's space sectors as the betrayal became clear. From the surface, nothing seemed wrong. Cities glowed with lights. News broadcasts spoke of unity, and trade stations continued their routines, but behind that false calm, something had shifted. In orbit, Earth's outer defense satellites came back online, not with noise or announcements, but in silence. They activated old protocols, hidden routines buried so deep even Earth's allies never knew they existed. General Marcus Reeve stood before the central display in the Strategic Defense Command, his face unreadable as red lines appeared across the galaxy map. Earth had been preparing for peace, but it had never been foolish. Every alliance, every handshake had been studied. Every agreement had been stored and backed up. And now, all that information was feeding into a system designed for one purpose: survival. On Earth's moon, black sites long believed to be shut down began humming again. Drones, silent and deadly, floated out from hidden hangars, scanning nearby sectors and feeding data back to Earth in real time. No broadcasts, no threats. Just the quiet return of control. Across the galaxy, some human colonies began to report strange behavior. Alien patrols, once friendly, were now circling closer. Resource transports were being rerouted without reason. Messages were delayed, filtered, or lost. On Mars, Governor Celine Graves read the ambassador's warning twice, her hands tightening around the edges of the tablet. She stood before her council and gave only one order: shut down the main ports and activate civilian evacuation drills under the name Storm Shield. The people wouldn't know the truth, not yet. But they would be ready. Meanwhile, Elena Ward sat in a guarded council chamber, watched closely by alien security officers who smiled too politely and never spoke unless forced to. They believed she was harmless, a powerless figure caught in a political mistake. But Elena was not done. Using subtle gestures and neural implants built into her diplomatic gear, she sent silent triggers through the floor beneath her feet, bouncing coded messages off the artificial gravity fields. These signals would not be picked up by any known system. They were human inventions, based on frequency science the Council had never bothered to study. Deep in a cargo bay below the chamber, a disguised device responded with a low pulse and began scanning. Back on Earth, whispers traveled faster than light. Within secret labs under Antarctica and bunkers hidden beneath the oceans, scientists and engineers gathered in silence. They had all been waiting for this day, though most had hoped it would never come. Among them, a project codenamed Echo Core, a technology that had never been shared, not even with Earth's closest allies, began powering up. It was not a weapon in the traditional sense. It was something else. A mirror of data and signals, capable of tracing digital attacks, rerouting control systems, and sending back false information in a perfect loop. It could make Earth systems appear offline while they were fully active, a digital shadow cast across the stars. Earth was vanishing from view, and no one realized it. The Galaxy Council, seated in their great chamber, continued to pretend all was normal. But some among them began to feel it: the unease, the quiet, the lack of response from Earth. One ambassador from the Zarthon race leaned over to whisper to another, questioning why Earth had made no protest, no formal complaint. There was no outrage, no warnings, just silence. And that was more dangerous than anything they had expected. The younger members of the Council, especially those who had quietly supported Earth's rise, started to feel the tension. They noticed patrol routes had changed near Earth's sectors. They noticed probes returning incomplete data. They noticed colonies going dark without explanation. Some even tried to ask questions, but the High Council dismissed them with cold eyes and empty words. They said it was a transition period, that Earth systems were under review. But even they could feel the edge tightening. In the shadows of the Council, secret orders were given. Alien fleets were moved closer to human colonies, and stealth cruisers began scanning Earth's atmosphere from afar. But none of their sensors showed anything strange: no movement, no signals, no buildup of weapons. It looked like Earth was standing still. But in truth, Earth had simply moved beneath their vision. General Reeve and his command staff worked without sleep. Messages were sent through ancient underground fiber lines, completely off the grid. Old alliances were reactivated, not the public ones, but those forged in fire and secrecy. Former enemies were contacted not for help, but with warnings. "Watch the stars," the message said. "Something is coming, and Earth is ready." On the edge of human space, Earth's hidden fleets began to shift position. These were not the grand, showy warships that appeared in peace parades. These were the ghost ships, built without signatures, invisible to standard scans, equipped with weapons even Earth had rarely tested. They moved like shadows through asteroid belts and dead zones, positioning themselves where the Council would least expect. Back on the Council world, Elena was taken to a new chamber. A member of the High Council stood before her, smiling in a way that felt more like a threat than a greeting. "Earth should not resist," he said. "This is for the greater good." Elena smiled gently, leaned forward, and replied, "You mistake our silence for surrender. That's your first mistake, and it will not be your last." Far beyond that room, in the deepest chamber of Earth's command bunker, a single signal was prepared. It had no sound, no light, no message. Just a pulse when sent. It would activate every hidden program, every fleet, every protocol Earth had been preparing for over 30 years. But it would not be sent today. Today, the silence remained. Because sometimes, the most dangerous moment is not the explosion, but the breath before it. The Council still believed they held control. They had no idea that Earth was no longer trying to join their system. Earth was preparing to rewrite it. And in that quiet moment, as stars continued to spin and systems remained still, the storm waited to rise. The silence finally ended with a flicker of light in the darkness of deep space, small, sharp, and fast. Near the far edge of the Zarthon trade route, a large supply ship drifted peacefully under the protection of an armed escort, unaware that something had slipped through the shadows. Without warning, the escort vessel vanished in a flash, its hull pierced by something that didn't match any known energy signature. Before the second escort could respond, its systems failed completely, communication blacked out, engines stalled, weapons frozen mid-charge. It fell into darkness, powerless. The cargo ship sent out a distress signal, but nothing came back, not because help wasn't listening, but because Earth had already silenced that part of space. The first strike wasn't about damage, it was about precision, fear, and message. And Earth made sure that message reached the Council. Within hours, the Council chamber was in chaos. Reports flooded in from multiple sectors, communications disrupted, sensor stations blinded, automated defense satellites hijacked. None of the systems were destroyed. They were simply taken, rewritten, controlled. It was as if Earth had reached into the very veins of the galactic network and twisted them shut. In the command rooms of Earth, General Reeve watched the reports come in with calm eyes. The operation had been flawless. The Ghost Fleet had emerged only for seconds, long enough to disable key systems, gather data, and vanish again. No signatures, no captured footage, not even a reliable description, only results. Entire stretches of the galaxy had gone dark for minutes, some for hours, and in that time, Earth had mapped every weakness in the Council's control. It was not war. Not yet. But it was a warning, sent in the language the Council understood best: power. At the heart of the Council world, the High Chancellor sat quietly while others argued around him. Some shouted for retaliation. Others demanded answers. Many couldn't even agree on what Earth had used. The technology was unfamiliar, too advanced, too clean. It didn't match anything they had seen from humans before. That was because Earth had never shown its true face, not during peace, not during alliance. Everything the Council knew about humanity was filtered through diplomacy, shared projects, and public programs. The real Earth had stayed hidden behind smiles, always watching, always preparing. Now, the hidden side had stepped into the light, and the galaxy was not ready. In secret meetings, Council commanders prepared for a counterattack. They mobilized fleets, issued new security codes, and planned strategic pressure on human colonies. But when they tried to move, they found their navigation systems unreliable, their codes already compromised. Earth had known every move before they made it. Entire battalions were rerouted to empty coordinates. Supply chains broke down. Internal systems collapsed under invisible pressure. Earth had not only struck, they had built a wall around themselves, unseen but solid. In one colony, a group of alien officers tried to detain human engineers working in communication towers. The humans didn't resist. They simply stood quietly until the officers' gear failed and the ground trembled. From beneath the colony, a hidden platform rose, displaying a shield system the Council had never seen before. The message was clear: Earth was everywhere, even where they had not been looking. Elena Ward, still held on the Council planet, received a visit from one of the senior advisors who now approached her with caution. He demanded an explanation for the attacks, accusing her of triggering a war. She didn't raise her voice. She simply leaned forward and said, "You betrayed Earth. And now, Earth is reminding you that silence was not surrender." She then offered them a chance, the only one they would get. Call off the fleets. Withdraw from our borders. Admit what you did, or this will not stop here. The advisor laughed, but the fear in his eyes betrayed him. He had seen the footage, or what little there was of it. He had read the emergency reports, the silent terror spreading among Council forces. He knew what she said was not a bluff. Still, the Council was built on pride and power, and neither would let them admit defeat. They believed Earth could still be brought under control. They didn't realize Earth had already moved beyond control. This wasn't rebellion. This was correction. In the shadows of space, Operation Iron Veil was launched. It was the second phase of Earth's response. This time, they didn't just strike systems, they erased entire outposts. One moment, a surveillance station existed. The next, it was gone, with no explosion, no wreckage, only a message left behind: "We see you. We hear you. Do not test us again." Across human colonies, the people stood ready. Emergency drills were replaced with real-time operations. Defensive grids came online. Hidden factories began producing strange machines that didn't match any public blueprints. The humans didn't panic. They moved with quiet purpose. They had expected this day. On Mars, Governor Selene activated the Aegis protocol, sealing the planet's skies behind layered shields. Every surface gun, once disguised as mining equipment, rotated toward the stars. Every satellite went dark, becoming part of Earth's new silent web. The Council tried one last move. A group of elite ships, cloaked with the best stealth technology they possessed, were sent toward Earth's atmosphere to test its defenses. They never arrived. Somewhere near the asteroid belt, the entire squadron disappeared from radar. No trace was found, no signal ever returned. The Council later received a package, one small satellite that floated near their homeworld. It contained a live feed showing the captured ships, still intact, being held somewhere in deep space. Earth hadn't destroyed them. It had captured them and was studying their technology in real time. That was the first real moment of fear inside the Council. They had assumed Earth was reacting, but now they saw Earth was leading. For the first time, they were not dealing with an uprising, they were dealing with a power equal to or greater than their own. Back on Earth, General Reeve stood before a new map, one that showed the expanding reach of Earth's influence, not by force, but by precision. Every system the Council had lost was now being rerouted through Earth's secure networks. Colonies once loyal to the Council were now requesting Earth's protection. Silent allies were beginning to emerge, offering quiet support. It was not a war of lasers and missiles. It was a war of silence, of information, of control. And Earth was winning. Elena was finally released from custody, not out of mercy, but fear. They didn't even try to threaten her anymore. She walked through the grand halls of the council, knowing they were watching her every step, wondering if they had already lost. She sent one final message back to Earth. They understand now. But they still think they can survive this. And with that, she boarded the ship waiting for her return. In the darkness of space, as the council reeled from the blow, Earth prepared for the next step. The strike had been clean, controlled, and terrifying. It was only the beginning. The galaxy had forgotten what humans were capable of. But now, with one flawless move, Earth had reminded them. The real storm hadn't even started yet. The silence that followed Earth's first strike was heavier than any explosion, deeper than any wound, and more terrifying than war itself. The Galaxy Council, once proud and untouchable, now sat beneath an invisible pressure that choked their decisions and exposed their weakness. They had expected a loud rebellion, wild and desperate, but what they got was quiet domination. Their systems were breaking from the inside, not by fire, but by fear. In just days, Earth had flipped the balance of power, and now the council leaders, who once mocked humans as emotional and primitive, could no longer speak without second-guessing who was listening. The regret began not with public speeches or official apologies, but in private chambers and quiet whispers. The very people who had once stood tall in the face of Earth's alliance now avoided speaking its name. The betrayal they had once celebrated as a clever political move was now turning into their nightmare, unfolding slowly, ruthlessly. Every plan they made was outdated before it began. Every strategy leaked. Their most powerful AI systems had been compromised without being destroyed, twisted into tools used against them. Their fleets were still floating in space, but their commands no longer held weight because even their captains feared Earth more than their own masters now. In the lower halls of the Council's intelligence sector, alarms rang without cause, warning of intrusions that had already passed. Engineers couldn't trace how Earth's code got in because there was no entry point. It was as if it had always been there, waiting. Their pride was falling apart, not from attack but from doubt. Even the most loyal officials began to ask how Earth had done this. Had they always been hiding such strength? Was the alliance nothing more than a test? Were the humans always playing a longer game while pretending to follow the Council's rules? The truth was worse than they imagined. Earth had never trusted the Council. They had signed peace only to study the enemy. Every handshake had been a scan. Every agreement had been a layer of defense. Every gift had been a warning, disguised as diplomacy. Now, as council leaders sat in front of broken displays and silent outposts, they understood what Elena Ward meant when she said Earth had not been defeated, they had been patient. The humans had waited. And when the betrayal came, they didn't cry. They prepared. Across the galaxy, council colonies began to suffer. Not from invasion, but abandonment. Systems stopped responding. Emergency supplies never arrived. Pirate groups, once hunted by the council, now walked freely. Trade routes failed. Power grids shut down. Civilians blamed the council for losing control, for breaking peace with Earth, and for starting a conflict they couldn't handle. Even loyal species, who once believed in the council's order, started questioning their loyalty. Some defected. Some demanded talks with Earth. And some simply left, hoping to avoid being caught between giants. On the moon of Velthora, a council ambassador was surrounded by angry crowds, not because Earth had attacked, but because they hadn't. Earth didn't need to destroy. They simply disconnected. And that disconnection felt worse than war. It was exile from safety, exile from the future. Earth had not only risen, they had taken the light with them, leaving the council in the shadows. Back on Earth, Elena Ward stood before the Global Assembly, no longer a prisoner or a negotiator, but a symbol of vengeance that was earned, not taken. She spoke not with anger, but with clarity. They thought our silence was weakness. They forgot silence is also focus. They thought our patience was fear. They forgot patience is the weapon of the prepared. Her words were broadcast across all human systems and echoed even in hidden channels the Council could not shut down. Human fleets didn't march forward. They simply waited, fully powered and watching. Council warships moved, but they hesitated. Captains feared being trapped, hacked, erased. The lines had blurred now. It was not about who had bigger weapons. It was about who controlled the information. Earth had mastered that battlefield. Regret turned into panic when the Council's central defense, AI long believed to be unbreakable, suddenly shut down for 5 full minutes. When it came back online, it displayed one phrase across every screen: "We are watching." That message didn't come from outside. It was triggered from within. In the High Council's emergency room, leaders screamed at each other, demanding answers no one had. The Supreme Commander, once known for his calm, now trembled while reading the latest report. 3 more Council outposts had declared neutrality and closed their ports to Council warships. Supplies were now being routed through human-controlled systems by default. Not by force, but because Earth's networks were faster, safer, and more efficient. Council citizens started choosing human systems willingly, not out of fear, but out of trust. Earth didn't need to conquer. The galaxy was turning toward them on its own. And that, more than anything, broke the Council's pride. They had betrayed Earth, but Earth had not returned that betrayal with destruction. They had returned it with superiority. The quiet, unstoppable kind that couldn't be undone with weapons. The kind that forced the galaxy to see the Council not as leaders, but as liars. Even the Council's most distant allies began to doubt. On the planet Theros, a treaty meeting was cancelled because the local government feared human response. In the station orbiting Kryn 7, the Council flag was lowered without a shot fired. These were not just losses. These were signs. Earth was no longer just a member of the galaxy, they were the standard. A standard built on strategy, not strength alone. And the regret that had begun in secret was now written on the walls of Council chambers, growing louder every day. Still, they refused to apologize. Their pride was a cage, and inside it, their influence was dying. They whispered plans of negotiation, but none dared send them, because Earth hadn't asked for talks. They had made their position clear: "We warned you once. We won't warn you again." In the final hours of that cycle, a single Council ship returned from patrol, badly damaged, its logs half erased. The crew spoke of a strange encounter. They hadn't seen Earth's ships. They had felt them shadows moving faster than light, disabling systems without sound, and leaving before alarms could trigger. No attacks. No demands. Just presence. Unstoppable, unshakable, invisible. It was as if Earth wasn't fighting anymore. They were watching and waiting. And that scared the Council more than anything else. For what enemy waits after proving it can win? What kind of power doesn't rush to conquer, but simply lets fear spread like wildfire? That night, as stars blinked quietly over dozens of uncertain worlds, the regret became real. It was in the tired eyes of the commanders, in the fear behind every decision, and in the silence of the reports that no longer came in. The betrayal of Earth had not only awakened a sleeping giant, it had reshaped the galaxy's future. The Council had traded trust for control, and now they were losing both. The regret had begun. But the consequences? They were only just unfolding. The galaxy held its breath as the silence between Earth and the Council stretched into something deeper, an invisible tension that reached every star system and whispered through every corridor of power. No more strikes had come, yet no peace had returned. The Council sat in their chambers, worn and restless, surrounded by silence that now felt like a storm waiting to explode. They had tried to send messages, but none were answered. They had called for peace talks, but Earth did not reply. The humans were not hidden, they were simply still. And that stillness, calm and absolute, felt louder than any battle cry. Across the galaxy, worlds once loyal to the Council were locking their borders, preparing for something no one could predict. Rumors.